Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Night Owl Season 5, Round 2, here from a very dark Spa-Francorchamps. I'm the shouty man, Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson and a very special guest broadcaster, Lambo Boy himself, Ryan Rai Gill, and we are back again, Round 2 of 5 in this championship that has already delivered confusion to us in the box as far as strategy is concerned, and tonight could be another one of those as a pit stop is required tonight for tires. Ryan.
Yes, welcome to the a couple of the drivers I know will be classing as the big one, Spa, a track that really gels with some drivers and just plays on the absolute minds of others. But yeah, tire change tonight, so you do have to at least take super long pits once. So it means that I think we might see a couple of split strategies, as you will. A lot of these cars are still very, very good on endurance, the likes of your Bentleys, your Aston Martins, and perhaps the Porsches as well. But it means that you cannot discount cars anymore, like the Mercedes that we've got. Savalainen, had we not had a pit stop this week, I would have said that the AMGs were almost out of it. They struggled to do long endurances on map 1. But now that they've got that, I would say that 100 is really one to watch.
I would agree with you there. I was actually listening in to some of the other teams talking about their fuel strategy here, considering there is a mandatory tire pit stop tonight, and it's actually quite interesting. Some of the teams reckon that they may they may need to take nearly a full fuel load, and obviously they'll be going 100%. They're not saving or anything, but they reckon that they could probably do the race at max attack, full fuel load, and sort of abuse the tires a little bit. But there's some other teams that reckon that they could do it in less fuel, which, as you know, means less weight. But regardless of that, they will all be spending at least the minimum amount of time it takes to put 1 liter of fuel and tires on their respective machines. But I am absolutely watching Savalainen as well. There are a lot of players here. Of course, Night Out Season 5, the random kick here this season is, well, every race has a random pit stop requirement that you learn about whenever the official race server goes up, which happens 1 hour prior to green flag. And they all know now they have to have tires on their pit stop. And in addition to that, of course, the other big thing, the most obvious thing that we all see, Ryan, of course, is that it's completely dark. It's not going to get any lighter. Night Owl Season 5, all 5 races in the pitch blackness. And that is going to play a factor around a place like this, where you have to be very careful with your wheel inputs, and any deviation from that could cause catastrophic results at a place like this.
Yeah, we took the night quite literally in Night Owl, and especially at tracks like this, Spa, completely in the dark. There are no floodlights here apart from, you know, in the main areas where the start and finish straights are and the pit straight. Other than that, it's completely pitch black around here. And when you're racing so close to one another, you're right up behind the bumper of the other driver. Your headlights are blocked. You can't see the track. It makes it even easier to go off and get track limits. It really sort of, it changes the driving style quite dramatically, I find, and some drivers really excel in the dark, as we've seen some people who just don't need any of your usual markers or anything. They just drive off pure muscle memory, and other drivers who maybe struggle in the dark because they need that solid inputs that they're fed by being able to see. So it makes Spa even more of a tough track that it already is, with all the corners such as Rouge Radion that you already have to get right. And wait, that is one of the McLarens having a bit of an off there. That is coming up to no name, and that we wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more like that. Just getting on the power a little bit too early there, and that sends the car off.
Well, we have a ton of cars on the track this evening. Of course, the summer season of Night Out shorter than you might usually expect. I know some of you are probably thinking, well, wait a minute, you said there's 5 races. Aren't there usually 6 or more? The answer to that is yes, of course, there are usually 6 or more, but this also, the other added twist is it's all ICGT DLC tracks. So it's 2019 tire, 2019 BOP, which has also sent people into a tizzy as well, because a lot of these top drivers that we see tonight are used to the 2020 BOP and coming back to the 2019 BOP. I think us and Chris Hay are currently doing a championship with the 2019 tires right now. And of course, the 2019 tires and stuff are not favored in comparison to the 2020, simply because you make one mistake, you heat up the tires, you flat spot them, then you need new tires. They do not ever really go back to good after making a mistake like that. I heard some of the teams discussing that prior to this as well.
Yeah, it's a strange one, the difference between the 19s and the 20s. The 19s are much more prone, I find, for, as you said, light slide graining, if you find. But the 19s, you can be a lot more vicious out of pit lane. Like, the grip levels out of pit lane are quite immediate, whereas the 2020s, they take time to knead in. You need to be gentle on them before you immediately go on them. So yeah, 2019, an IGTC bop. And the other thing of that is then that starts to bring in cars that you might not have suspected anymore. IGTC is quite the wild beast in the fact that you start seeing the Hondas really come back on song, and BMW and Nissan and all the other marquees that usually are dominated by Aston, Mercedes, and the other sort of usual yardsticks that we class in ACC. But for the first people who are out on this, I think the first flying lap will be an Aston Martin. That'll be Cromwell Ryan Meenan, and the very, very bright red as well, Aston Martin. At least we're able to see that in the darkness. And I think that might be quite the strategy coming to the end of this season. Have a nice bright coloured car. You definitely can be seen all the time.
Yeah, and don't think that that Ryan Mawson is saying that as a joke. He's not. Sometimes that is a legitimate strategy. If you're more visible, sometimes it can help people with their perception, especially depth perception. And we don't really talk about a lot of this stuff in racing, but it is a part of it, especially in the dark. Depth perception is almost nil. And if you have a car that is bright, it kind of helps other people around you. And it has basically the same effect of wearing a high-vis jacket when doing road works. So we will have to see if fortune favors Cormac Ryan, meaning the Cormac GP driver tonight, as 15-minute qualifying session already underway. And it's a long old way around here. 15 minutes plays more like 10 minutes at any other circuit, I would think.
Yeah, well, we've come on to the first flyer, and we're already only got 12 minutes left. So if you start invalidating your laps exactly like that, Cormac Ryan Meenan, you can see the car bottom out there, hit the underside of the car. That sent it off and takes to the escape road as to not cause any damage. But that will be an invalid lap. So by the time you've done that, though, you think you've gone round another 2 minutes. You're on 10 minutes, almost 9 minutes left. By the time you've added up the minutes and seconds, you really can't be afforded to invalidating many laps here at Spa before you've run out of qualifying time already.
Yeah, you definitely have to be careful. You got to think of it like this. If you invalidate your lap, you've effectively, especially if it's, right after coming out of pit lane, you've effectively ruined about 5 minutes of qualifying, just completely gone without any sort of headway being made or any lap time being posted. So you have to be very careful about that. And in Cormac's in his defense, it is very difficult to get up that section, especially maybe the tire's not quite up to pressure. It's only 22 degrees C. It's actually not bad, actually, the temp here at 10 p.m. But either way, missing the corner, and that will make them have to take another run at it. Well, it's not that dark, to be fair, yet. The earlier scenes we had in practice, was very dark indeed. But here at 10 p.m., not so much. There's a fair amount of light in the sky. I don't know if that's just because it gets dark here relatively late, or if that's like some sort of moon effect.
I believe it's because ACC goes, the timing that they have, it goes off when the real race was held. So when the real IGTC race was held, I think it goes off that. So if it's like midsummer, obviously it won't go dark for a long old time. But the 100 of Salvalainen, who we thought might be the trendsetter, his first sort of flying lap out is a 2:18.5, immediately knocked off by Chris Vining at a 2:18.075. But I think there's still a lot of time yet to be had in these laps. They're just warming up.
I just direct your attention to the lower right third there, Chris Vining's team, the Where Will I Been this week, perhaps poking a bit of fun at himself for last week there a little bit. Very humorous. You gotta love sim racers, just racers in general. They're a different breed, aren't they? And you gotta love somebody that's not afraid to poke fun at themselves. And oh my goodness, the 67 McLaren going quickest overall, a 17.880 for the AYC Racing team. Nice lap time there, but immediately beat by Sizek. Sizek was the quickest person in practice, and backing that up here with a 17.854, just 27 1/1000ths off of the overall pace is the 67 McLaren, as Vining, I'm going to assume, invalidated their lap at the top of Radion and has reset to the pit lane. Remember when I said that you lose 5 minutes from doing that, the out lap and then another lap? Well, that'll be the damage. It'll be about 5 minutes before he sets another lap time. Will be for Vining, the 67 as well, doing the same. There's no real reason, right, Mawson, why you would reset right now unless you invalidated your lap. Or spun, I suppose.
Pretty much. It's invalidated lap spun, or if you've gone out and you realize that tire pressures are wildly wrong. I mean, if you've been running around on a more race fuel in practice and you take all the fuel out, they can find a lot of times that your pressures are too low because you've put them down for the extra fuel load. But Savalainen coming to the line, he is trending up quite a bit on his delta. I think this could be another provisional pole, but what will it be coming up to the line? It will be a 2:17.676. So that AMG, the sledgehammer, what used to be the benchmark of quick lap times around Spa in the 2015 version, still showing that it's got quite a lot of pace, but can Sizek knock it back off? The Ferrari as well looking very, very prominent here. A lot of the mid-engine cars actually looking at the anything in the top 10. We've got a lot of mids and rears really. The Ferrari looking incredibly fast.
All Sizek here flashing the car in front of him. I don't know if he's going to get any relief from that. He's at least getting a suck, but it's going to be a problem here because he's absolutely caught him. And if he has to go offline, nope, he's not going to be. Oh, he is going to be forced offline. Look at this, completely off the track, and that's going to invalidate that lap, which means that I'm pretty sure Sizek will only get one more timed lap, maybe two if he's lucky. Yeah, probably two now that I think about it. And that, well, that just adds up to the pressure. Cormac Ryan Meenan, 3.5 tenths off the overall pace set by Savalainen in the AMG. You were right to say that he was one to watch, that 100. It's certainly coming out that way. Just up until a moment ago, Benjamin Heilman had the quickest lap in silver. The hashtag pipes out for Nick team was on pole. That was until Pierce in the 131 set a blistering lap that he did. And now Heilman back in 12th overall. Pierce in 9th, but Heilman just about 1.5 tenths off of the pole time for silver. And Heilman goes ahead and abandons that lap. What could, oh, and Samir Foch in the 888 goes second, 1/10 off the overall pace. But what does Cormac Ryan Meenan have?
Yeah, Cormac Ryan Meenan coming up, trending through, coming up to the bus stop. If he can keep it through, it will put him in very good contention. We'll be moving up out of the top 5, which is still nothing to shake a stick out. It might be a podium position. If you can get those turbos spooled up on the Aston Martin, it is so sluggish out of the last. And there you go. A mere that's 300ths of a second off Savalainen in the 100.
Yes, indeed. Very close stuff there. And now Savalainen, who, by the way, has been out there this whole time, will be worrying about that, perhaps thinking he had it in the bag there for a moment or two based on practice and qualifying. Well, no, not quite so fast.
I think that the AMG needs that time out there, though, because the AMG takes so long to warm up its tires. It takes, find at least another maybe lap or two versus a normal GT3 car. But I've never quite understood why. It just seems to be a trait of the car. But whereas normally I would say, you know, you've done 2 or 3 laps, start pushing on the tires. Mercedes, I'd say maybe up to anything up to 5, depending on the ambient temperatures, before you can really start throwing that car around if you want the ultimate grip. So I think Savalainen, if he can get it all, if he can get all the pressures correct and get it up to temperature, that there might be a little bit more in that Mercedes. And speaking of Mercedes, is Ryan Benoit the only other Mercedes I believe we have in the field, which is the other 2020 Mercedes coming to the line, trending up, but at the last moment abandons it. Was that out of fuel?
I don't know what on earth would cause you to do that. You would at least try to clutch in and roll. But yeah, there's definitely an issue. Yeah, that was definitely an issue. I don't know if they ran out of fuel, or is it possible they invalidated in the chicane? I didn't see anything that would cause that. But one way or another, they have definitely did not mean to do that and have reset. Ryan Gill is confirming he did. In fact, you were absolutely right, Mawson. He did run out of fuel. So that's what happened. He just misjudged it. He was up 7/10 was Ryan Renoir, and just ran out of fuel coming to line. Absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, well, that can catch you out. The fuel per lap gauge goes off a 3-lap now. It doesn't. It used to update per lap very slowly. Now it takes your average of 3 laps, which means that if you're in a qualifying session and you don't necessarily know how much you burn, some cars actually go up versus the versus the estimated. So, say 3 point whatever. Cars like the Mercedes will actually burn more than what they are estimated, and some cars start to burn less. So I think that might have been a bit of a Mercedes thirsty moment. I think it's one of the most thirsty cars around Spa, unless you take the old Jaguar, for example. That I think just had hose pipes for injectors. It didn't bother with any of this injector nonsense. It just put the line straight from the fuel tank down into the engine, and we'll call that good.
Well, we've seen a Cisic take the pole position, that 17.436, quarter of a second nearly from Savalainen, but now Savalainen has been overtaken by Cisic there, getting it done. Remember, they had the invalidation and they reset, and they have come back that 427, and now 18 100ths off of pole position, as it's all getting very close like it normally does here at Spa-Francorchamps. I don't know what it is about such a big track, how the times get so close. Vining comes from 7th to 4th. He's now about a quarter of a second off of the overall pace. They'll get another lap. And here is Savalainen. They will have known that they got bumped down to 3rd place. Culinary in chat saying, will this be the night of the Finns? Spoiler alert, if you weren't with us earlier for RCI's inaugural Rallycross event, Culinary was the winner of the final in that event. So one Finn to another, cheering on the, I like it. It's almost like a nations thing now. I like it.
Well, I mean, there is the old saying, isn't there, which was especially true in rallying, and that was, if you want to win, hire a Finn. But can it be the Finns tonight? who can dominate it coming up to the line. Savalainen is actually trending up as well, so it could be good. A slight slide there through bus stop might have just unsettled the AMG a little bit. Will it affect the time enough to matter? And it will, just about. 0.054 off the pole, and actually I think Savalainen has called it good there. They have returned to the pits. That will be their final qualifying time.
Well, I made the mention at the beginning of this session that it's a 15-minute session, but it plays more like 10 simply because the magnitude of the track. A 2-minute 17, the quickest lap you can imagine. It is very long old way. I don't know. I assume Spa is the longest circuit in ACC. If there's a longer circuit, I can't think of it, but I'm pretty sure it wins top trumps this track. Well, several teams, like Mawson said, in the pit lane. Audi will also go no further, and neither will Williams and Zubik. But here's Ryan Renoir, who was massively up on their time. Would have been within a quarter of a second of pole, which would have put them inside the top 5, but they ran out of fuel coming out of the bus stop chicane. I still call it a bus stop chicane. I know a lot of other people do as well, despite the fact that it hasn't been a bus stop chicane in, oh dear, many years now. But what can Renoir do here? Coming to the line, all flying laps count. Everybody finishing up their laps now. Ryan Renoir for Pipo Clown. Will it be Pipo Pog? It might be, all the way to 7th, so not quite as good as their previous lap, but still really nice up into 7th place. You can win from there around here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Spa is not as much of a race of attrition as, say, Bathurst is, but it is still a track that is very easy to make a mistake at. And a lot of these cars that we've said before about these split fuel loads and taking tires that you have to do in this race, you will still find cars in front of you that have to take more fuel. The Mercedes of Savalainen will have to take at least, will have to take at least half a tank if he's doing 2 30-minute sprints. So cars like the Bentley of Samir Forsh, they'll be running on basically nothing because they are so good on the fuel. The Lexus, I think, will need a lot of fuel. The Ferrari's quite good. So the difference in pace, I think, will really start to bring some great racing. And there's a few of the last people across the line. Jochen Bakkerden in his Audi, one of the few Audis that we've seen in this championship, has decided to give up on that lap. And this final small train coming up to the line, Timothy Flamger as well, down in 19th, but can they improve up with their final flying lap?
We'll have to see. Coming to the line here down in 19th, would like to be a little closer to the front of the field, and, well, they do get a little closer to the front of the field. 18th for Flamger there, and now to Jordan Daly, the backward racing. Now, it's interesting. Oh, he's going to abandon that lap. And that will be the end of qualifying. Folks, do you like GT3 racing action? Do you like Ryan Mawson, Ryan Gill, and myself? Well, why not subscribe and hit the bell? Don't miss a single GT3 race or otherwise. Of course, we're branching out here at RCI. We had our first ever Rallycross event earlier in the afternoon. And, of course, Racing and Race Room now as well coming up. Fantastic stuff. So, we stream most days of the week around here, so why not subscribe and hit the bell and join us for future races? We would love to have you around. And, of course, in the interim, just a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. You can find all of their information in the description. Support people that support RCI. Ryan, we have points to go over, being race 2, and it's going to look a lot like the results of the first race. We have Alex Rogers leading the championship here over Chris Vining, just a few points in front, 7 to be exact. Well, the reason for that is because, of course, we've only had one round so far. Jan Savalainen in 3rd place, looking good tonight. Samir Foch qualified inside the top 10. Williams rounds out the top 5. Then behind them, actually, Williams and Payne are tied for 5th place. And then behind them, Sizek, Magazi, Renoir, and Bakadaran in the 10th place position. And of course, these are the drivers looking to have a better go of it this week. Madre, Sizek, Miko, Zubek, Rogers, Tyler Jason LaValle, Jelinek, Litherland, Alari, Cormac, Ryan, Meenan, rounding out the top 20. And there are going to be some drivers that showed up tonight that were not here for the first round. Actually, they don't exist on this list. But, of course, certain drivers not getting points. But there are other drivers that will be getting points here today. And we will talk about them later. Here, that was Pro. Here is Silver. Benjamin Heilman led and dominated the Silver race first time out. James Leader second. Zabo third. Nathan McConnell, who has a very interesting team name this week, in 4th place. Renan Dito in the top 5, and then just 1 point behind him, Pierce. And then as we go further through the field, Norton, Anderson, Flamger, and Ted Edwards rounds out the top 10. A lot of America in that top 10 in Silver. Back half of the Silver field, Mike It Slaps Jones, 25 points there. Galinsky and Dorsey are the teams that have multiple points. I say that because there are several teams that have 1 point. Balmeister, Adi, Fazel, Daly, Stefanik, and Moriar have all 1 point. And behind them, of course, Lindsay and Like not scoring points as of yet. And I promise you, there will be more people on that scoreboard next week. Some teams could not make it round 1 that are here this week.
And back to the pitch darkness of Spa. You've got to get your endurance lights on, lads, because you won't be seeing where you're going without them.
Yeah, it's very dark now. I don't know what ungodly time in the morning it is, but it's definitely not as light as it was at 10 p.m. It's very dark, and you will be finding your way around here. Perhaps some of the drivers, like we mentioned earlier, a little gingerly, but others will not be phased in the slightest as we go green here tonight. Well, you saw practice, you saw qualifying. Ryan Mawson, what's your take? Who are you taking in this race?
I think with that half and half stop that we've got, I really think that Mercedes is going to be one to watch. The straight line speed of that Merc, it's not like the 2015 that we once knew and loved and was basically the benchmark. That was the car that, if you gave it to the hands of the super duper alien people, that used to do 15s, that car around here. It was absolutely mind-bending speed. New one is a little bit slower with the added aero, but you still cannot discount when you've got a 6.2 litre V8 engine. You can really blast past some people. So I think that 100 is going to be one to watch. And otherwise, I wouldn't also discount the likes of Samir Foch, the Bentley. You can't really take your eye off them. They are very, very good on fuel, very good on tires. So their pace will always stay quite constant. It's kind of, at least I would say, anyone in the top 10. It's anyone's race, really.
I would agree. I'm not going to take my eyes off Ichicek in the front there. It could be just the recovery day that they're looking for. At this point in the championship, it is about making up the points. Something a driver told me the other week has stuck with me, and I've said this on every broadcast since, so if you're tired of hearing this, I do apologize. But I have to say, if you score enough points early in the championship, what happens later usually doesn't matter. And I think that's a fair assessment, is if you do well enough early on, then the odds of you succeeding go way, way up. And I think a lot of teams that are sort of in the mid-ground here, as it is absolutely pitch black out here tonight at Spa-Francorchamps. But I think for some of the teams in the midfield in the championship, a win tonight, perhaps for the 67, could completely change that? Well, there are a lot of challengers, and one thing we didn't talk about at all, we had 5 or 6 cars all within a tenth, not a second, a tenth of one another at the longest track in ACC. It's going to be a good race.
Oh yeah, and I mean, look at the top, basically the top 5 that we've got. If you discount the 2 Ferraris, they're all each different car. McLaren, Ferrari, AMG, Aston Martin, all of those have their strengths. All of them have their weaknesses. They'll all come to play in different sectors of the track. It's going to be one hell of a race. And yeah, what you were saying earlier with the darkness, I can confirm, having been here and watched some real life racing, it does get this dark. The only thing that the sim doesn't get is that the drivers are not blinded by all the camera flashes that adorn the track constantly. But I will say, having camped at basically Brussels, the corner we've just gone through, it is really nice to be you know, setting your camper van up at night. You go to the bed, and you once again hear the almighty AMG come rumbling through and off down the straight. It's like, yeah, this is welcome to GT racing.
Well, we talked about the tires, about the ICGT championship being a 2019 championship, so we default to the 2019 rules. Seb Brunier, the silver champion last season, I just like saying that, champion Seb Brunier, mentions as well the 2019 tires degrade at a higher rate than the 2020s as well, and that's very true. Forgot to mention that, but that's absolutely spot on. The 2019s, their wear rate is a little bit up there. Just a reminder, of course, every team tonight must take tires on their pit stop, in addition to the 1 liter of fuel that they have to take. So again, other than being in complete darkness, which they will be all season, and at ICGT DLC tracks, there's also a random pit requirement that they don't know until the race server goes live 1 hour before the race takes place. They will have known that, they will have planned for that, and it will be a strategy play. Certainly, I reckon you'll see a lot of people in at the halfway point.
I think pretty much all of these drivers would split it half and half. It's kind of, because you have to travel down such that long pit, it kind of makes no sense to go long on these, which, like I said, for the Mercedes drivers, they will be jumping for joy. It means that they're not out of this race no matter what. And the other thing, at least now we have we use the we use the GT style pits now after the update to Spa in ACC a while ago. It means that you don't get your tires put on in the F1 pits, and by the time you've come out of that the bottom timing marker, your tires are freezing cold again. At least you will leave the track with some heat. And speaking of now lining all up 2 by 2, but don't worry, you got at least a few seconds to the green light, because we use we don't use the timing mark as the green. We use the what I would call the front straight, I guess, back straight. It's kind of, yeah.
The GT line, because I think they actually make that distinction now. You have the F1 straight and the GT straight, and they call the timing lines by that, I'm pretty sure. At least in all the sims that I play, that's how they differentiate it. I assume that might be some official moniker. Isasek leading the field with Sizek beside him, Savalainen and Vining behind him, and behind them, the ever-potent combo of Cormac Ryan Meenan and Samir Foch. It would be hard to pick a favorite out of all of those. And Zubek in the 577 having a drive-through penalty as we are green, and the first run up, Arujin Radion, a clean getaway for the 67 and the 427, but it's absolute mob behind them. Savalainen tries to get clear of the 101, and Cormac Ryan Meenan, as they are all single file, but behind them they're still wadded up.
Yeah, everyone trying to get just that little bit of slipstream. You can see everyone going single file. But yeah, very clean start and just a blur of lights behind. If you're a driver in front, you just cannot be looking in your mirror. You can't see anything apart from just this busy pack of lights. And Savalainen managing to hold on to that third position. But that AMG looking ever prominent in the mirror of Sizek. tried to get around on the straight line. It just wasn't to be at this early stage in the race.
Well, I think the 88 is around, that being one of the only cars. I documented Zubek getting the drive-through for the start infringement. The number 7 of Rodriguez is in the pit lane. I can tell you that the 88 has gotten going the correct direction and is back on the tail of the pack, that being the only real incident so far that we're aware of, the only yellow flag anyway, as fighting continues here with Payne. Of course, Payne will have known that the car behind him, Zubek, has a drive-through penalty. The other thing we didn't mention, we just didn't have enough time, is for the very first time, Season 5 of Night Owl is live stewarded. I know some of the stewards will be listening tonight in between the stewarding decisions. So hello to all of you, and thank you for your time on a Saturday night to keep the race fair and clean. We definitely appreciate it. 7 still sitting in the pit lane, but for Isasek, it will be leading lap 1 for him, and a little bit of a gap emerging just there. Actually, a little bit of a gap. I should rephrase that. A nice gap, nearly 2 seconds to Isaac.
Yeah, that McLaren really in the early stages has got up and gone there. They've got certainly showing some great pace in the early stages. Just got to make sure though that they are not pushing overly hard on those tires. You've still got to break them in gently, but we could ask our resident McLaren specialist in the chat, Sebastian Brunier, what is the McLaren like on the early stages of the race on the cold tires? Because I know if you're driving the Bentley, you have to warm them up, because if you dare push on them during cold, it just turns into a nightmare for the rest of it. But I've never driven the McLaren, so maybe they can go that kind of pace from the get-go. I know that the Mercedes will still be sort of winding up, as it were.
Well, I will tell you, this is one of the cleaner starts I think I've ever seen in a pack of cars this size at this racetrack. That was about as clean as you could expect. Again, the one bobble in this very corner, in fact, earlier, but that doesn't seem to have hurt the 88 as they have already started gaining positions back. So beyond that, it was and still maintains a clean sort of affair. So the stewards will be happy about that. It will mean that they won't have a ton of work to do. And on top of that, that also means that nobody's race was particularly ruined by that. This is what I'm more interested in. Michael Zubek, he has not served the drive-through. You get 3 laps, by the way, folks at home, to serve that drive-through penalty for the start infraction. Normally, we see cars dive down pit lane immediately to get rid of that, and I would suspect it would be fairly beneficial to get yourself out of traffic to do so. What do you think? What do you think Zubek's thinking there?
Yeah, I know that a lot of drivers they like to stay out on track to potentially slow up the people that are behind them just to get a little bit of something. And 3 wide coming through. What is that?
You were saying?
Yeah, I was going to say, before I was even saying, some people like to stay out to try slow the team down. There's been a touch. And now actually Zubek does decide that he's taking the drive-through, possibly unwanted there.
I have a very sinking feeling as we're looking at Alex Rogers, who came in as the championship leader, by the way, Alex Rogers. And he is going to be 31st position near the back end of the field. That is not what the 119 wanted to see or have happen to him. We talked about doing well at the beginning of the season could set you up. Well, Alex Rogers definitely did that, but he has got it all to do today. Now, what's happened to this car? Ryan Gill has picked up Savalainen, who's back in 13th.
Yeah, I didn't catch when the 100, unless they've had a moment, had a spin. I can't see any damage on that car. Maybe a tiny bit on the back, I might be seeing. I can't quite see through my monitor.
Ryan Gill reckons that he made a mistake on his own, but he's not sure about that. But I can tell you, whatever happened to him, it didn't show up on our monitor, which or did it?
Race replay brought up, or is this just a pass?
No, that was a tap, but that wasn't. Yeah, it was definitely a nice pass, nice orchestrated pass there. But a little bit, look, little bit of a tap. Rubbin is racing, right? But no harm, no foul.
Self-inflicted then to how he was back in 13th. If it didn't show up.
We're forced to believe that whatever happened to Savalainen was self-inflicted, perhaps running a bit wide. We talked about that. That was the first thing we discussed, was how difficult it can be to run around in the dark here. You wouldn't expect it to be, but it is at the speeds that they are going. So all it takes is a momentary lapse in judgment. Oh, and the Nathan McConnell 23, the iHeart Jesse Lee car. Really, Nate? We're going with that. All right. Little birdie told me that they did have a peculiar team name this week, and well, there you have it. So in this same race, we have the pipes out for Nate in the iHeart Jesse Lee car. Oh dear.
But yeah, what I was saying before everything got a bit crazier to Blanchimont, before that, some drivers do like to stay out, to try to slow down the people who are behind them in the hopes that, you know, they can catch back up. It's kind of a balancing act though, because as well, Spa is such a long pit lane that it will cool your tires off all the way down again. And oh, that's one of the Ferraris round that comes out.
That's a biggie! Oh no, it's Vining again. The where will I bin it this week? It's Radion, mate.
Well, there you go. In fact, yeah, that was spinning. I was looking on the wrong part of the timing screen, and that is so easy to do at the coming over Eau Rouge. You can see the car, he touches the inside curb. As soon as you touch the inside curb, you are a passenger.
Yes, indeed. You are 100% correct, and you just hate it for Vining. Chris Vining has so much talent and speed, and if it wasn't for a few things like that, we could be talking about Chris Vining winning races and championships. And unfortunately today, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. That's significant damage. I reckon about 20-ish or more seconds.
Yeah, that car was hard into the wall backwards, which as well, sometimes having front aero damage is better, because rear aero damage will cause it to become even more rear end skittish. And yeah, sometimes having the front end damage and just having understeer is easier to drive around. But for that car, I think he's going to have to sort of come in soon-ish to fix that damage. At least, though, you can alter your strategy because the pit window is open for the entire duration of the race. So even if you can't run your strategy of a half and half, and your race goes a little bit squiffy, I think we could say, you can still alter your strategy and be in it.
Well, we were talking about painting your car a bright color. We talked about it last week as well, about Benjamin Heilman's car being very green. And he told me over this week, he goes, yeah, that's part of the reason why it's that color. He also just really likes that color, which is fair enough. It serves a dual purpose, but he is down in third place. He was second, I believe, at the end of qualifying, but Baumeister has gotten around him and put him down to third. Of course, Heilman, the championship leader coming into today's race. And here's a man that could really... Oh, was that a car backwards there? Yes, it was.
It was. It looks like it.
The 960?
966.
Yes, indeed. That's Payne. And for the leaders, all the cars that they're racing are falling off the road here.
And it all appears to be in the same area as well. It's just that Radion
Ferrari
doesn't touch the wall. But that was very much a Lamborghini moment there. Lamborghini moment TM. Touches the curb, and you can just see the car, look. It bounces down, and it's going. Does well to not hit the wall, though.
Folks, I can't tell you how good of a save that was in a Lamborghini of all things. But to know how far you had to the wall, to keep it off that, on the slippy stuff, just too much, like you said, just too much curb.
Yeah, and Spa is quite vicious for that. A lot of the curbs you don't think would be super aggressive. A lot of drivers like to take it, but it's not necessarily the ramp up, as they're quite nice ramped up curbs. It's the bouncing back down off them that causes all of your trouble.
Well, you know what they say. It's not the fall that hurts you, it's the sudden stop. It's the same thing for the car. It's not so much the flying that's the problem, it's the landing. You have to absolutely stick that. Well, for y'all in Savalainen, it hasn't been a picturesque night for him, but coming back through the field now up into 8th place position. Backridden in the double five, the 55, will be the next person on his list to overtake that for the 7th position. This the rear wing camera of the 55, but look who's in the background there. Oh yeah, and Baumeister in the 48 has decided to pit early. I'm forced to believe that's a routine stop. Rogers, the Pro Championship leader, in as well, pitting out of 23rd place. Baumeister pitting out of 2nd in silver, and that will give Heilman that spot back. Heilman, of course, just behind this car of Savalainen as they start to spread out a little bit, but that is not doing anything for the intensity, as it's still very much a 1-hour sprint race.
Yeah, and for Savalainen, they're just trying to get everything back that they could from what we were forced to believe was a earlier self-induced spin. And for Heilman, he's just trying to hang on to any of those points that he could get. Obviously, Baumeister had, believe it was a disconnect last week, wasn't it? That he had.
Yeah, it sure was. You're absolutely right. It was. They were having a pretty good race. I wouldn't say I would.
Yeah,
I do so many races I don't recall. They were doing really well, and they had a disconnect. They were able to report that to us. It's very unfortunate for them, but that pit stop, we'll have to see. Not a lot of early takers on that. Actually, they're still in pit lane. Is that normal? Well, I guess it is normal since it is a double pit lane, effectively.
it might be, but their number hasn't turned green yet, so they still haven't dropped off the jacks. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I wonder if the 48 has had a problem and towed back to pit lane, so then you have to wait for the tow and then for the car to get back and then work on it. So we'll have to keep an eye on the 48, but that does put Heilman up into P2 of silver so far. Great news for him. Baumeister has dropped off the jacks now, so there we go. It was possibly just a longer standard stop.
Cisic continues to lead in the 67 over Cormac Ryan Meenan. Sizek back to 3rd now. So Cormac has gained a place. 2.8 seconds the gap, and I don't think it's coming down. It was 2.5 last I checked. Now 2.8. So Cisic getting it done here, starting to work a little bit of lap traffic. Baumeister is out of the pit lane. And just an update for you at home, we documented the 966 spinning at the top of Radion. We don't have a replay for that. It did not get reported either. So I think we have to go with they didn't hit anything.
No, and that wasn't. So no other drivers or barriers were involved. I think once again, my best assumption would be that they've touched the inside curb and that's caused an unwanted spin. It is so tempting a lot of times, or if you get the line just a little bit wrong, you throw the car in. By the time you've done that, you are committed. The line that the car is taking is now the line that you are taking whether you want it or not. And yeah, if you touch that inside curb, it is pretty much game over. Because the other thing that you never quite get the sense of in the sim is how steep that hill is. It is absolutely terrifying in real life, you know, to see drivers go up at the speeds that you do, and you think, yeah, and the cars you don't have as many crashes there as, you know, as you think, and many spins or anything. It's just incredible, really.
You have to believe, Au Rouge Radion, you have to believe that your car, when you get to that turn, that it is going to turn, it is going to assist you in turning. You have to believe that, because if you don't believe it, you're going to be going way too slow through that section of the track. So it is miraculous when you get there, when you get to Eau Rouge, you're turning in. The car does turn with you because of the camber of the racetrack. It's quite interesting. And then Radeon is, well, for me, it's always been a bit of a mess. Too much inside curb, missing the inside curb, going a bit wide towards the GT pit out. It's a whole thing. Chris Vining, who had a spin in Radeon earlier, we had a lot of damage, has got themselves a 15-second penalty. And if I'm not very much mistaken, that is from the stewards.
I would believe so. I'll have to just have a quick glance on my desk if we've got the actual piece of paper already.
We do indeed. Spa, John Bryant started the thread, but actually Glenn is the one handing us the papers this evening. Warning for car 48, use of in-game chat. Warning for car 64, use of in-game chat. Racing incident between the 48 and the 24 on lap 1, turn 10. Lap 1, turn 19, incident involving the 100 and the 101. 15-second penalty for car 101 for taking out the 100. Drive-through penalty for car 29 for missing the braking point and taking out multiple cars, the 88 and the 7, that also on turn 1. 15-second penalty for car 199, causing avoidable contact with the 34 and the 29. Penalty elevated due to an unsafe rejoin after all of that took place, not holding their brakes. 15-second penalty for the 89, failing to slow down for slower cars, leading to a takeout of the 64. Warning for car 12, after being involved in an accident, doesn't hold brakes and rolls into the path of another car. And 15-second penalty for car 199. 199 misses braking point and makes contact with the 12, taking him out. So that's 30 seconds worth of penalties for the 199. And Glenn just shoved a bunch of papers at me there. That was a lot of penalties really quickly. I guess there's a lot of incidents we didn't necessarily see there.
Yeah, it does look like it. So when we cursed it, didn't we, when we said that it was going to be a nice quiet night, and then everything happened at once. We just didn't happen to see any of the see it. Maybe
well, it is dark.
Yeah, we could play ignorance. We didn't see it, therefore it's fine. But the stewards with their eagle eyes, you might be able to get away from the commentators, but you will never be able to miss the eagle-eyed from the stewards.
I say that's a fair assessment. There's a further racing incident, no further action that came in based on other contact that was deemed acceptable. Of course, the RCI stewards, they take that into account. It's like, is it acceptable? Was anything lost or gained? That sort of thing. Certainly there are times where there's incidents where you expect, like, oh, well, if this was, let's say FIA, for instance, there'd be a penalty for this, but the RCI stewards won't give a penalty simply because nothing was lost or gained. And that's really, at the end of the day, what it all comes down to. Was something gained or lost based on contact or based on somebody's actions? That's what they're looking for. Not necessarily the action itself, but what becomes of said action. Time loss, position loss, you get the picture. Well, 40 minutes and some change of the race left, just gone half past the hour here. Very dark indeed. Track is only 20 degrees C, and there's actually a nice wind there. And by nice, I mean, I think that's actually a tailwind down the straightaway up there, in fact. But otherwise, almost completely cloudy here. We'll call it, yeah, we will call it mostly cloudy. Not that you'd be able to see anything either way in the dark. Samir Foch has driven up from 7th place up to 4th in the 888 Bentley. I don't know what else I expected from the driver of the Bentley, but doing well. Ryan Renoir in 5th place as well. Pierce, by the way, the leading high silver car, the 131 Ferrari, all the way up to 6th place. Meanwhile, second in that class is still behind Savalainen, who was the victim of contact earlier.
Yeah, and Samir Foch, like I said, I thought that Bentley was going to be quite the one to watch, and half a tenth behind you can't really fault that. And for Williams, is it a look up at the inside of the 11 of Gonzalo? It was a look at Blanchemont, but it's nigh on impossible to go too wide there. The Honda just managing to keep the position and scuttle away using a bit of the runoff. But you know, I don't blame him. I think if I saw someone stick their nose up inside the mirrors, I would also be backing out there and thinking, nope, there are. I do self-preservation first. But that 533 really showing that they want past. Nothing for their class, mind you. The Silver and the Pros are entirely two separate championships. But Williams will be wanting to get up the road closer to his actual Battle of Alari.
Gonzalo there completely missing Radion. That will be a track limits warning. Keep in mind, you only get 3 of those in the race. The 4th one will cost you an extra 15 seconds on pit road. As the pass here by Sir Williams trying to get it done. Well, they're going to be side by side, but the inside should favor the American driver. There's going to be contact between the two of them. That's going to send the Honda a little bit wide, and the position will be yielded, perhaps with a little extracurricular activity from Gonzalo. But nevertheless, the 533 is through. Again, like you said, not a position for class, but a position that Williams needed to make so that he could get to Alari Magazi up in front of him. Here is Samir Foch, the Black Potato Saw Racing. What does that even mean, Samir? What does that mean? Black Potato Saw Racing Team running down Sizek now for 3rd place. Sizek, who was running 2nd earlier, down to 3rd and under fire here, could be losing a podium position. Samir Foch, what a race from him. We didn't really see it in qualifying, did we? The pace here, top 10 pace for sure out of the Triple Eight, but now looking like they could finish on the podium, perhaps even do better than that.
Yeah, a lot of cars sort of favor. There are 2 cars that I find that really favor the race pace, the Bentley being one of them. Some cars come really alive, you know, when they are in a qualifying pace. You take all the fuel out of them, you make them super light, and others just don't really benefit from that. But then they end up where in the race they just do so much better. And having driven the Bentley now for multiple seasons, I can definitely say that it feels a lot better in race trim than, say, a Mercedes or Aston Martin does.
That's why I like having you around, Mawson. That's why I surround myself with smart people, because you all know the things I couldn't possibly know. And, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, and Samir Foch is the pudding. Folks, we talked to you earlier. We mentioned the penalties for the 99, 30 seconds in total. We're going to take you back to one of those incidents and show you just what exactly happened there. We'll see here, actually, for our first time as well, right?
So this was the start. 3 wide.
3 wide. Oh, yes.
Squeezed.
Yes. Yeah, I think the stewards deemed that was he unnecessarily took them 3 wide there, perhaps. Did Modric?
I think the term that some people would use is the lap 1 hero, where there are a lot of drivers I've seen who want to gain everything on lap 1. Problem with doing that, though, is you can also lose everything on lap 1, and for the 199 they have feared the wrath of the stewards, and well, they'll know now for next time that we are watching, and you cannot escape that.
Well, we're not watching because we didn't see that.
Yeah, we are.
At all. But good kudos to Ryan Gill, was able to pull that up for us and show you just what they mean by avoidable contact and taking out multiple cars there. And of course, there was another incident as well. That was only 15 seconds, and there was another one. And well, I think perhaps a Cisic is getting held up in traffic a little bit. The gap was 3.1 seconds at one point. It's down to 2.3 seconds over Cormac Ryan Meenan. Meanwhile, the battle for 3rd is on as well. Foch continues to try to get around Sizek here. And I just saw the 48 Porsche come back into the pit lane, into the 197 has crashed in front of the leader in the 67, and Asasek has crashed into him. Major damage on the front of that McLaren, you have to think.
The 197 was just left with, well,
Here comes,
67.
here comes Cormac.
And here they come. There comes Sizek and Samir. He will defend it. That he will do. Will that open the door for Foe? She's looking up the inside of the Ferrari, but it's just not to be. Each driver slamming the door in the face of each other and just about keeps all the positions gained. But for the 67, they just had nowhere to go.
We didn't even talk about it. We're going to see a replay of this. Lap traffic in front of him, just loses it halfway up, literally nowhere to go. Cormac Ryan Meaden. Cormac has earned himself a track limits warning, but he'll take that.
Cormac with the foot welded to the firewall there. He was not scared, and I think you could have just about another coat of paint on that wing mirror before you touch the wall, but I wouldn't put a thick coat on. You would have touched it there, but oh boy.
There is a lot of times where we are very critical of driving and decisions that drivers make. Make no mistake, in the dark in particular, but just in general, Radeon, there's a car spinning in front of you. There is a car trying to navigate away from that. The track appears blocked. There's not a whole lot you can do. Also, hitting your brakes there, folks, is going to cause you to spin. You cannot do that either. You just have to ride it out. And the only choice he had was to ditch it on pit out for where the GT cars come out of pit lane, which was not a terrible decision. Oh my goodness, buy a lottery ticket, Cormac. I don't know what to say. That was absolutely insane how close they got. Cormac Ryan Meaden now, the leader of the race, as several cars come into the pit lane. Sizek in pit lane, the 55 Audi in pit lane, running inside the top 10. Asasek continues. Samir Foch up to third. Renoir fourth. Pierce in the top 5. Oh my goodness, absolutely crazy. It's all kicked off here.
Yeah, and what an absolute manic moment for the 67. It is the worst feeling ever. You see a lapped car go off in front of you, but you could see it looked like the car was going right. He goes left, and at the last moment, the car starts rolling backwards. You're left with absolutely nowhere to go. Just one of those moments of racing for the 67 that you couldn't do anything about. What we'll have to see, though, is what can they do with coming back. And Chris Viney here, quick race replay, looking up the inside of the Bentley. Too wide into Lecom and gets it done. Got the overlap, shuts the door. Nice maneuver.
Yeah, very nice there. That's more like it. Viney will be saying to himself, easy as you please. A bunch of cars in the pit lane. And it is an absolute ton. Something's happened to the 577 of Zubak again. That car slow. Now in the chicane. And it was a momentary yellow, but that has cleared. But that car was definitely a bit slower than it should have been. Man, it is a long old time in pit lane around here. Sizek, for instance, we told you when they came into pit lane, well, they've just now left. In fact, the 55 who came in right behind them has just now left. Magazi in the pit lane, Sir Williams in pit lane as well, and they're still in there, Magazi and Williams, as there's been another dust up in the final corner. Now, did that involve the 5? Now, did that involve Cormac? Because I saw the yellow come out and the 5 lit up as if they were involved. We'll be interested to see that. I can tell you that Cormac Ryan Meaden, the leader of the race, is in the pit lane. So is Asasek and Pierce. No, Pierce is not in pit lane, excuse me. My timing and scoring hadn't updated. So did something happen here? We have a replay, so I think it might have done. Car in front of him. Oh, nearly the same fate as Asasek.
Almost, just about avoids it. You can see everyone sort of scrambling to avoid the stricken Aston Martin, but for Cormac the better there. pretty much minimal time minimal time lost even. But coming into the pits, the problem with the pits, as he says, is, I mean, look, we had that replay. We talked about it. Cormac's still going down the pit to his pit box. He hasn't even reached it yet.
Wake me up when he leaves.
It's probably one of the most boring pit lanes on the calendar as well. It is the longest track and the longest pit lane. It's like, can I have a brick or something to put on the accelerator, and then, yeah, can the team radio me when I finally get to my pit box? It's just like, where am I going again?
It's so long. It's effectively 2 pit lanes with a little mini pit lane in the middle. Well, some more stewards' decisions coming at you. No further action for an incident with the 197 and the 19. Racing incident between the 100 and the 69. 15-second penalty for the 899. Avoidable contact with the 119 on lap 2. And a warning for car 577. Dangerous pit entry. That was, we saw that, I believe. Yes, at the end of lap 2. Dangerous pit entry. So no penalty for the 577 for that dangerous pit entry that caught the 119 and the 24 out, and a warning for the 199 for dive bombing the 39. And Glenn's been talking to me, and he goes, yeah, we're not done. And Alpha too has been talking to me, and they're asking for mercy in the box tonight. You don't often hear them beg for mercy, but it has been that kind of race.
I think it's also sometimes that kind of track is Spa. You have 2 kinds of racing at Spa, I find. One where the field immediately spreads out and everyone sort of plays a long old game of staring at each other, and the races where everything happens. And, well, today we've definitely had an everything happened kind of race, and we're not even done yet now. This is looking up from the back of the wing of Dorsey. That ginormous Bentley wing that's more like a land sail that will definitely be giving a nice punched hole in the air for the 966 of paint. Ooh. Get on the road, my son. There you go. And a Lamborghini coming out the pits that we can't even see. And that is sort of the action of Spa. You come over Radion completely blind, and sometimes there's a car leaving the pits that you also have to avoid.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's danger everywhere. You have to be at 100% focus to even make it around a lap around here. So much going on, let alone having to race one another. As Dorsey continues to defend. Well, the top 2 silver drivers currently have not pitted. That's Pearson and Gonzabo. Actually, Gonzabo in the number 11 Honda is now in the pit lane and taking their long old time going to the GT side of the track. Samir Foch leading the race. Only a couple of vehicles, 2 to be exact, that have not pitted yet. We expected a lot of the minute pit or at the halfway point, and well, we pretty much got that. Most of the cars did come in somewhere between the 3/4 mark and the halfway point. And with that said, I'm very curious whenever Pierce pits in the 113 where they will come out in relation to Heilman in the 24. Of course, both of them racing for not only this race win but the overall championship. Either one of them could win it, and of course today could go a long way in determining that. Well, quarterback Ryan Meenan is the leader on the road so far, and oh dear, here's Madre getting a spot from like Ted Edwards, and was indeed Ted Edwards that they got the spot from, but that massive 30-second penalty they still have. Actually, it's just been upgraded to 45 seconds. And speaking of penalties, Mawson, I noticed Asasek has one too. So let's see here. 15-second penalty for car 14. 14 did not leave enough room, leading to the takeout of the 29. 15-second penalty for car 199. 199 took out the 19 and doesn't brake and runs back into them. Disqualification for car 199.
Ooh.
Disqualification for reaching maximum penalty point allowance in this event.
So from that, Asusec got that SG30 on their own.
Must have been speeding in pit lane, I reckon.
Which is probably, it would most likely be pit in. When you come down that narrow line, it is easy to miss the board sometimes. And then it is sometimes the worst feeling if you've known that you've gone over the line too fast. You have that entire length of the pit to just be thinking, I'm pretty sure that I'm getting a drive-through or an SG30. I've done something wrong here. And you don't know until you leave it. But Asusec coming in to serve that penalty early, it seems. But you've got so long to do that.
Oh, have they reset? Now, did they? Yeah, they did indeed. They must be thinking that's game over for Asusec. Your pole sitter, who was of no fault of their own, involved in an accident at the top of Ratty on a lap car, or a car that was about to be a lap down, spins, nowhere to go, contact made, damage, and now, on top of that, speeding in the pit lane is going to lead to a retirement for your pole sitter. How often does that ever happen? I think I can count on one hand. Samir Foch, though, the leader of the race in the 888 Bentley, does come down pit lane with 22 3/4 minutes left in the race. They will become the last driver on pit lane, and that will likely give the lead back to Cormac Ryan Meenan, which doesn't look like it considering they just entered Sector 2, but we promise you, Samir Foch isn't going anywhere.
No, as Ryan Meenan's, speeding through what I believe nowadays is called Campus. I sometimes know it as Piff Path, and out of Stavlot 1 and 2. The car of Samir Foch has not even reached his pit box yet. It is so long before you get anywhere near thinking about doing a pit stop, and then your team's got to come out and service the car as well. And well, swapping back to the actual racing on the track as well is Thomas Pierce, the leading silver driver as well, and he's under attack from Baccaden, that 55 that's managed to get all the way up into the top 10 and has pulled away from Savalainen.
Look at this. Baccaden is absolutely on it, looking to get this position here.
Oh, no!
Oh, and he loses it! The aero wash of the car. You can't get that close. How many times have we seen that?
Oh.
You cannot get up close behind somebody else. It will suck you around. You lose all the aero on the car. That's exactly what we saw there.
And if you've got that close and you have to let off at all, the Audi will not tolerate it.
Oh, dear.
If you've modified the throttle input at all, that will go. But the Ferrari is quite a common car for causing huge turbulence behind it. Massive amounts of aero wash off that Ferrari. And for the Audi, it's backwards off of Blanchimont. And I am not afraid to say that I have not, that's not the only driver who's done that. I have done that myself many times in the Audi.
Well, the Audi was one of my first cars in ACC, and I definitely had a few bouts of that myself, and I had to actually ask for professional help. Why is it doing that? And I basically got told, well, you are driving the Audi. What did you expect? So did get that. Pierce, by the way, I was curious where the 131 would cycle through. Well, they cycled pretty much out where they were. They actually did lose a little bit of time to this man, Benjamin Heilman, the hashtag pipes out for Nick team. They had a bit of a bigger gap. It's only about 7-ish seconds, not even that, 6.5 seconds to Heilman. Of course, Savalainen is between him, Pierce, and Heilman, but that gap was quite a bit longer. So the undercut that Heilman did work to some effect. Now it's just a matter of, can you make up 7 seconds thereabout in 20 minutes? We'll have to see. But nevertheless, you would generally expect that Heilman would be pretty okay with taking a second place here. Cormac Ryan Meenan leading the race, 3.6 seconds over Samir Foch. What a race Samir Foch is having. from 7th place to 2nd. What did I say? You can win from there, I believe is what I said. Look at that. He's right there. A little bit of luck, a little bit of pace in the Bentley, and he is the next person in line. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Ryan Renoir as well, 4th.
Yeah, Ryan Renoir, who we saw he had a less than stellar qualifying from basically any way that he wanted it, has climbed all the way up. And I did mention that I thought that the AMGs might be quite the powerhouse, the 100 not having their sort of day to speak, but the other Mercedes going great guns. And Samir Foch in the AAA actually pulling out a small lead now. Look, 0.894, and when they crossed the timing marker the last time, it was a 0.7. So that Bentley's still going great guns. If he can get out of the slipstream range of Sazek and Renoir, he might actually be able to hold second quite comfortably with 18 minutes to go.
What an absolutely brilliant race for some people. It will be a frustrating defeat for others, of course, but it has been one of those races. And if you think the stewards have been putting their feet up, taking load off, well, they haven't been doing. They've still been swamped with stewards' decisions, and they are as follows. Let's see here. We have a 5-second penalty for car 29. Fails to hold brakes, causing contact with the 39. No further action for an incident involving the 988 and the 34. 15-second penalty for car 119. Doesn't slow down to avoid a heavily damaged car. It ends up spinning them. Warning for car 55, forcing another car, car 24, off the track while overtaking. Racing incident between the 101 and the 14. Racing incident between the 14 and the 199. They have absolutely been busy. When's the last time the stewards were this busy, do you think, Mawson? It's been a while.
It's definitely been a while. I can't even remember the last time we've had a race sort of this manic. Maybe in one of our World Tour events, but even then I can't really think of anything like that.
Well, that is it's very hectic. And Alpha, otherwise known as Vanta Blue, in the chat, letting us know that they are still catching up. Thank you for that. Cheers, Alpha. By the way, I figured out what Vanta Blue is. Vanta, after I forget what it's actually from, but they interchanged the color with blue. And I asked Alpha once, why did you choose blue? Well, I just like blue. Fair enough.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's kind of what it is. I mean, I've gone by, which you've seen when we broadcast the CHSR races. My usual online handle is Hemi Husky. That's what a couple of people know me at. And it's like, well, why is that? It's like, well, my character was named because I liked Hemis when I was young. Big V8 engines, and then I liked Huskies. That was it. Very unoriginal me. Don't ever ask me to be like a creative writer, folks.
Come on, you put two things together. That's impressive.
Yeah, man. I mean, but yeah, don't ask me to be like a creative writer for you, because it's going to be a bit of a naff novel, really.
Well, stewards in chat telling you they're still catching up. I can confirm that. Glenn continues to hand me. How much paper do you have in that box? There is not enough forest in the world for this much paper. 15-second penalty for car 427. Goes to lap car 48, but collides with them, taking them out. Racing incident for an incident involving the 533 and the 11, and a warning for car 197 for not holding brakes, presumably after a spin. And they're on lap 10, folks.
Yeah, still catching up, but it does show how eagle-eyed these stewards are. They're looking through every single lap throughout the field. So as much as we only see what's going on our monitors, the stewards look at every single person in this field. And like I said, hats off to them, because I can barely see what the hell is going on right in front of us, let alone what's happening right at the back of the track 6 laps ago.
Well, I can tell you, we were completely confused last week with some of the strategies because they were so different and varied. Well, this week it's not necessarily the strategy that was confusing. That was fairly straightforward with the tire stop. What is a bit confusing is how all of these contacts are happening, and it seems normal to us. It is because, of course, the darkness out there. It does mask a lot of it. It won't do that for the stewards, mind you, because they get a list of every single incident that goes out. So they can't hide from them, but they can hide from our cameras a little bit. Alex Rogers in the 119 trying to get by Ted Edwards here in the Lamborghini. Of course, this is two different classes. Be interested to see if Ted fights this. He doesn't look like he is, but it's not necessarily a passing zone here.
No, it is kind of a very much a one line, and as we saw earlier, if you get so close, you start being in the realms of aero wash and unsettling the cars. Not necessarily such a problem for that Aston Martin. It is such a stable car. I mean, I think the Aston Martin is always what people say is a great starter car in ACC. It's very stable, it's got good pace, it's good on the tires, it's good on the fuel, it's easy to drive. It's kind of everything what you want, but it just has its own little foibles, mainly the turbo lag. You come out of corners like La Source and the Boss Stop chicane and things like that, you plant your foot and it's kind of like driving a 1980s turbo car, sort of nothing, there they are. But I think that is actually how SRO bopped the car. They say you can have all this lovely grip and aero and good straight line speed, but you will be decimated out of corners. And Aston Martin sort of said, yeah, that's fine. Apart from how recently they've actually added an anti-lag system to it. So I think that car will start getting more weight soon.
I see. Well, in the interest of fair and balanced journalism, I have to report that the 14 of Mike It Slaps Jones has spun himself around pretty much in the same place the Audi did earlier. He was really close to another car, and I wonder if that Honda didn't appreciate being up behind somebody else, or maybe just a little bit too much curb for Mike Jones. But I believe, yes, indeed, I can see the 14, there it is, and right there, in fact, coming down the pit lane, because as we pointed out and Seb Brunier reiterated, when you mess up the tires, they don't come back. This is not like the 2020 rule set in tires, where they do eventually come back to you. In the 2019 rule set that the ICGT uses, it doesn't work.
Yep, if you have spun, basically, and it's got to the point where the car is undrivable, go down the pits, because you're not going to be able to limp it on, and eventually they sort of break off the rubber and redo. That will be that. And actually, Kilian Raiminen ended up with a 5-second penalty as well, and that is Samir Foch literally hanging off of his bumper. That gap was quite a lot bigger not that long ago.
It was nearly 4 seconds at one point, and I mentioned that I was curious to see if Samir had the pace, and he does. So Kilian Raiminen, though he is in the lead right now, isn't or wouldn't be at the line. This race has absolutely flown by. A little under 11 minutes to go, just about to hit 1 a.m. in sim time. Track temperature, the wind, and the conditions have been steady throughout. And let's see if Glenn has an explanation for the 5. He does indeed, but before we get there, 5-second penalty for car 5. Dangerous ignorance of yellow flags for an incident with the 197 and the 67. So the stewards have given Cormac a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags when there's an incident at the top of Radion. That's whenever he licked the stamp and sent it up the outside. The stewards, I guess, have determined that it was dangerous, I suppose. What are your thoughts on that, Mossy?
Yeah, it is one of those, though, where if you see double yellow waved flags as well, which means that there is a stranded car and an area which is so dangerous, such as Radion, you really should be slowing down a little bit, because you don't know what's going on over that blind crest, and
it could have been so much worse had that Honda just been a little bit further right, maybe not hit the 67. Cormac would have come over there at full tilt and absolutely T-boned it, possibly caused a massive pile-up. So I can see where the stewards are coming from. It is one of those areas where you do sometimes just have to back off that little bit and accept it. But, you know, before you've committed to Radeon, especially if they're double yellows.
So basically, what we are forced to deduce is the stewards felt that it was negligent to continue at the pace that he was doing, and a 5-second penalty in there. Racing incident between the 966 and the 89, and a 5-second penalty for car 55. Doesn't hold brakes and it rejoins the track dangerously around the 100 car, perhaps contact there, I would assume. So 5-second penalty for the 55. They've caught up to lap 16 now, at least.
Yeah, they're getting on it now. We're on lap 21. I think I can see the smoke burning off the pencils as they're writing down things so fast and trying to catch up before the race ends.
Oh, Ryan Gill, who is RCI TV, by the way, in chat, if you are watching, changed Mike Jones's name to Mike It Spins Jones. Absolutely brutal.
Mike It Spins. You do have to admit, though, that Mike does love the Honda, but I can't say that I know many drivers that also love the Honda. It's certainly a interesting car, and I'll leave it at that for fears of having Mike sort of burst in afterwards with the axe and chop my head off.
Well, Vanta Blue, otherwise known as Alpha, has given us some additional information from the stewards box. In the first 10 minutes of racing tonight, the stewards handed out a total of 125 seconds worth of penalties and 1 drive-through. Absolutely astonishing. That's probably a record.
Well, you've almost got a lap there. You know, we've almost got 1 lap of penalties. I think if we added up all the penalties from all of the race, we would have a lap and a bit of full penalties. And Samir Foch, even though those penalties are in front and behind him now, so he's very safe in his position, he's still all over Cormac Ryan Meenan, the number 5. It doesn't matter if he's got a penalty and he's going to cross the line first anyway. He wants to cross the line first out of his own pace, let it not just a penalty. And you can see now, every time that the 5 runs that little bit wide, the 888 is looking up the inside.
Ryan Gill reminding me that a couple of seasons ago now at Kyalami on the Friday Championship, there were 30-plus penalties, not 30-plus seconds, 30-plus penalties handed out. I remember that race because we had an internal discussion after that race. I remember that. Some frustrated drivers and some frustrated RCI staff members after that event for sure. And that didn't repeat, folks. That was the one time that happened, and it must have been something in the water. And going back to Cormac for a minute, nothing says that he can't defend his position, even though he will give it up in the overall if he doesn't gain 5 seconds. Nothing wrong with what he's doing. If he wants to defend that position like his life depends on it, he may do so. That is his position. Now, I know a lot of drivers, especially the one behind, will likely mention something to the effect of, oh, well, he should let me go. But that's not how racing works. He can defend his position as long as he continues to do it safely, as he is doing. Speaking of coming back through the field perhaps a little bit, Vining in 13th place has a 15-second penalty of their own, but is looking to try and get by Nathan McConnell in the 23. Of course, that's not for position. It's not for position overall, and it's not for position in class either. So it's going to have to get up the road very quickly in a very short period of time. And I wonder just how motivated he is to even try to make that pass.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? I think the Triple Eight would really want to cross the line, in P1, take the checkered flag on their own pace. But at the same time as well, he can just sit there, play it incredibly safe, and cross the line. And for anyone now who's got a penalty, you've got to think the same thing. Chris Vining, the 101. He can push and push and push and try get the 23. You see him closing all the way up to the back, but it will be kind of all for nothing. But it might just minimize, it might gain him one less place. If he can get around the 23 and get up the road a little bit, he might not lose it out to the 966, for example.
I'm gonna embarrass Phil Roberts for a second. He accidentally walked into the wrong box. We meant to go to the stewards box. He walked into our box, and he says that he knew something was wrong whenever he could hear me in both ears. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. But also, he gave us a brutal burn in chat. Phil Roberts says, "Mike, slap and go 30 Jones." Oh dear, they're getting worse all the time.
Yeah. Luckily, we don't have to deal with Mike afterwards. I think he'll be into the steward's box for a bit of a telling off of some of them, maybe. Back to going up the front. You see the 5 once again, trying to clip the curbs. He's just trying to keep everything that he can to keep that lead, is Cormac Ryan Meenan. Will it be enough, though? 3 minutes left on the timer, so after this, you'll have 2 more laps. It won't be a short race. We will run 26 laps here at Spa. And in those 2 laps, what can Samir Foch do?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, unless Sizek kicks it into another gear, and even that won't matter. Foch is the only one of the top 3 that doesn't have a penalty for one thing or another. So all Samir has to do is not have a really embarrassing crash or drive-through at the end of this race, which easier said than done. How often have we seen that in Night Owl, not even just Night Owl, but Friday Champ and other things, where at the last possible second it all goes pear-shaped. But for Samir Foch, it's very clear he doesn't need to pass Cormac here. I reckon he could, but I also reckon Cormac would still fight him, because at this point Cormac doesn't care. He knows he's probably going to finish 3rd. That's still a podium. That's very respectable, but it's a pride thing at this point. Of, look, I kept you behind me. I won the race. I know what the scoreboard says at the end. It doesn't matter. I crossed the line first. And that's huge for some drivers, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, so it's one of those basically racing as is, the unstoppable force, the immovable object. And speaking of people who've got the penalty but are still going for it, Chris Vining, the 101, looks up the inside of the 23 of McConnell. But both drivers back out of going.
He just lost that position.
Yeah,
he was back. Yeah, McConnell had given up that position to Vining a lap ago, and McConnell got back by him, and now Vining back through again. Make up your mind, chaps.
I thought they might have attempted the 2 wide up there, and you just see at the bottom of the hill the Lamborghini getting just a little bit squirrely, and I think that just gave him that the Ferrari the better drive. But yeah, I think with that, McConnell knows that there's no point fighting Vining. This is the other side of the coin. This is the driver who sees no point fighting the person with the penalty. They're going to finish behind you anyway. You don't need to be defending against them. What is the point? Just drive your race until the end.
Well, it's been a tough old race for Alex Rogers. The incident, the penalty, and, well, they will have to do some regrouping after today, I think it's fair to say, and get back on the horse for race 3. Not the longest championship, just 5 rounds and 2 of them gone. And for them, it was looking like it was going all their way after round 1. Well, today, not so much the case. It unraveled in a hurry, but not all hope is lost. I know they're 18th on the scoring pylon, but they will not get 18th place points because, again, they're in the pro class. So they'll probably get about 11th or 12th by my rough math. I did do the math here for you, so that won't be as bad. And considering some of his rivals have had bad days as well, it will lessen the impact as he tries to go around the outside of Gonzabo in the Honda. It doesn't work. Oh, and Gonzabo goes wide. And that position will be yielded. And I don't think Gonzabo, that was not on purpose. I don't think they ever regained control of that Honda.
Now, that Honda was definitely out of control as soon as we got to Blanchemont. So you can see there on the inside. They swap across. The Honda has a twitch. He's still trying to save it. On the bumps, and it's around it goes into the wall.
How many times have we seen that in WEC and the 24? It's so easy to do. And it's going to be an unfortunate Gonzabo not having the greatest race either. They would have liked to have had a better showing today. They've had their share of battle scars. And that, unfortunately, just adding another one. Time has expired here. The final lap of the race, coming to get the checkered flag. This is the race for the win. Samir Foch knows all he has to do is just sort of hang out, not even really trying, not late on the brakes at all, just following Cormac Ryan Meenan. Well, it will be Cormac Ryan Meenan crossing the line first. He will win the race, but due to a 5-second penalty, it will be handed to Samir Foch in second place. The 888 Bentley wins Pro Class here at round 2 of Night Owl. Sizek comes through to finish third. They will be bumped up to second. Cormac Ryan Meenan will actually finish third. Renoir in fourth place. And Thomas Pierce, Mom, get the nightlight. They have won in high silver over Benjamin Heilman. Savalainen 6th, Heilman 7th, Williams 8th, Backerden 9th, and Tom Audi, the 69, will finish inside the top 10. Everybody else is actually still racing. It's a really big track.
You know what? I want to see what will happen, though, when everything's chucking out, said and done. I think the Ryan Renoir in that 732 might have actually got Sizek and Meenan.
Chris Vining with the frustration.
Not happy with his day.
Chris Vining will be happy to get away from Spa. Yes. I think it's safe to say. And who can blame him? More finishers coming across the line. 11th, Norton. Then behind him, Vining, McConnell, Alari, Magazi, Payne, Rogers, Edwards. The 64 Porsche of Raja Corby. Dorsey, Flamger, Zubik, Daly, the top 23. We started with 30-plus cars. We ended with, I think, about 27, something like that. Well, it was a stressful day for a lot of drivers. It was a difficult day for a lot of them as well. But for Samir Foch, it's going to end in victory. And well, just like we did last week, going to round 3, I am absolutely none the wiser. Nobody through 2 rounds, Ryan Mawson, has taken a commanding lead in this championship. Nobody looks stronger than anyone else. I guess we're going to have to race next weekend to see who can emerge victorious again.
Pretty much. And just to have a quick update on you as well with the standings now that it is all sort of shaken out and the points have been tallied and the penalties given. It was obviously Samir Foch wins overall after the penalties. Ryan Renoir does pip second, a mere 0.5 of a second ahead, and Cormac Ryan Meenan goes down to third position. Pierce moves up to the 4th in that silver class as well, and Sizek bumped all the way down to P5.
Yes, indeed. These are the unofficial but final standings from the day. A lot of penalties you see on the board. And, well, it was rough for a lot of drivers. You see these down below. We saw Gonzabo at the end. Galinski, Jones, Acek there, Baumeister, Renadito, Anderson, Rodriguez, Litherland, and Madre all having struggles today. A lot of those cars not finishing at all. Folks, it was a difficult race, but my congratulations to anybody who was able to finish that race, especially those of you that were able to finish that race without a penalty. It felt like it was a bit of that coming around. One thing I will say, there was not any track limits drive-throughs, and I think that's the first time I've been to Spa in this format where I haven't seen at least one. Well, we'll be back with you in a week's time for round 3 of the Night Owl Season 5 Championship. And in the meantime, why not take a look at the Monday European GT Masters Championship? Ryan Gill and myself with you on that one. And of course, the GT4 Championship, where Ryan Mawson and Christian Stricker bring that to you on Thursday. And then me and Ryan Mawson will be back right with you here on Saturday for the next round. Why not like, subscribe, hit the bell, don't miss a single race. A big thank you to all of you for being with us this weekend, and we hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast. And a big thanks to our partners that make this race and every race here on RCI TV possible: Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. You can find more information about those fantastic folks in the description. Support those that support RCI TV. Well, on behalf of myself, Jesse Lee, Ryan Mawson, and Ryan Rai Gill, we thank you for watching, and we hope that you've enjoyed today's broadcast. Well, we will see you next week, where we will be just as clueless as we were this week. Have a great night.
See you at Kailami.